The air crackles with tension at Sunset Plaza Mall as Clayton Thompson stands firm, his security uniform pressed and badge gleaming under lights. His muscled frame blocks the women's restroom entrance while Eleanor Williams, an elderly woman with silver hair and trembling hands, pleads desperately. A crowd forms, phones raised, murmuring growing louder. Then footsteps approach, casual, measured. The crowd parts, and through the sea of onlookers steps Keanu Reeves, his expression thoughtful yet determined. Eleanor Williams never expected to become the center of attention at Sunset Plaza Mall. At 73, she'd spent her life as a kindergarten teacher, touching countless young lives with her gentle spirit and warm smile. But today, her medical condition, a weakened bladder from recent surgery, had forced her into this humiliating standoff. The morning started normally enough. Eleanor took her usual walk through the neighborhood, stopping to admire Mrs. Patterson's rose garden and wave to the children waiting for their school bus. The mall wasn't part of her regular routine, but her granddaughter's birthday was approaching, and the specialty bookstore carried the exact edition of classic fairy tales she wanted to give as a present. For Clayton Thompson, the day began differently. The mall's corporate office had recently implemented strict new security protocols following a series of vandalism incidents in public restrooms across the city. The mandate was clear: no exceptions to the new customers-only bathroom policy. Each restroom now required a fresh receipt from any mall store, no older than 30 minutes. Clayton, having served 15 years in mall security, found himself caught between corporate rules and human compassion. His path to becoming a security guard wasn't straightforward. After returning from military service, Clayton struggled to find his place in civilian life. The structured environment of mall security offered familiarity, and he excelled at maintaining order while showing kindness to lost children and helping elderly shoppers with heavy bags. But recent pressure from management to enforce rules more strictly had begun to chip away at his natural empathy. The mall itself had transformed over the years. Once a community gathering place, Sunset Plaza now prioritized profit over people. Security cameras multiplied, benches disappeared to discourage loitering, and signs announcing new restrictions appeared weekly. Regular visitors noticed the change. The warmth of community gradually replaced by cold corporate efficiency. Eleanor hadn't made any purchases yet when her medical condition demanded urgent attention. The specialty bookstore sat at the opposite end of the mall, and she knew she wouldn't make it that far. The nearest public restroom outside the mall was a 10-minute walk, an impossible distance in her current state. Her hands trembled not just from age but from anxiety as she approached the restroom, only to find Clayton Thompson standing guard. The growing crowd of onlookers represented the community's divided response to the mall's transformation. Some filmed with phones raised high, others whispered in disapproval, and a few stepped forward to advocate for Eleanor. Among them stood Penny, a local nurse who recognized the signs of medical distress, and James Martinez, whose own mother faced similar challenges with age-related dignity. Each person watching carried their own story of how Sunset Plaza had changed. Mrs. O'Leary remembered when the mall hosted community events in its central courtyard. Teenager Kevin Santos thought about his grandmother, who no longer felt welcome in the place she once called her second home. Even Clayton, beneath his stern exterior, harbored doubts about the human cost of corporate policies. The tension built not just from this single confrontation but from months of growing discontent with the mall's increasingly restrictive atmosphere. Eleanor Williams and Clayton Thompson became unwitting symbols of a larger conflict between human dignity and corporate protocol, their standoff capturing the attention of everyone present, including one unexpected celebrity observer about to change the course of events. The confrontation at Sunset Plaza Mall escalated as Eleanor Williams pressed her hand against the wall for support, her dignity hanging by a thread. Her soft voice carried years of teaching experience as she explained her situation to Clayton Thompson, but the security guard's expression remained unchanged. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his face, highlighting the internal struggle beneath his professional exterior. Clayton shifted his weight, his fingers brushing against his security badge. Each word from Eleanor struck a chord, reminding him of his own mother back home. Yet the morning's management meeting echoed in his mind. Stern warnings about policy violations, thinly veiled threats about job security, and statistics about vandalism costs. His shoulder radio crackled with routine updates, each sound reinforcing the weight of his uniform. Penny, the nurse who had stepped forward from the gathering crowd, attempted to mediate. Her scrubs gave her words medical authority as she explained the realities of post-surgery recovery and elderly care. Other voices joined hers, a retired teacher who recognized Eleanor from the local elementary school, a young mother holding her child's hand, each adding their perspective to the growing chorus of concern. The mall's regular soundtrack of soft music and retail announcements continued overhead, creating a surreal backdrop to the unfolding drama. A teenager lowered his phone, shame crossing his face as he realized he was documenting someone's moment of distress. An elderly man in the crowd removed his hat, remembering similar struggles with his late wife's medical conditions. Clayton found himself scanning the crowd, noting familiar faces from his daily patrols. There was Mr. Patterson, who always greeted him with a morning coffee. Mrs. Rodriguez from the alteration shop, who had hemmed his uniform pants last month at a discount. Each familiar face made his position more uncomfortable, the human cost of rigid policy enforcement becoming painfully clear. Eleanor's composure began to crack, not from anger but from mounting anxiety. Her hands trembled more visibly now as she reached for her medical documentation. The paper shook as she held it out, her voice wavering as she explained her recent surgery. A small drop of sweat rolled down her temple, her discomfort evident to everyone watching. The crowd had grown larger, their collective presence creating a pressure cooker atmosphere in the mall's wide corridor. Store employees peered out from their entrances, torn between protocol and compassion. A mall custodian stopped his routine cleaning, his mop suspended mid-stroke as he watched the scene unfold. The air grew thick with tension and unspoken words. James Martinez, whose mother faced similar challenges, stepped forward to share his family's experiences. His words painted a vivid picture of dignity in aging, of the everyday challenges that healthy people took for granted. His voice carried the weight of personal experience, making the situation impossible to dismiss as mere policy enforcement. Clayton felt the pressure building from all sides. His training emphasized security, but nothing had prepared him for this moral dilemma. Through the crowd's murmurs, he caught fragments of conversations, discussions about human rights, elderly care, corporate responsibility. Each whispered comment echoed his own doubts about the policy he was enforcing. The situation teetered on a knife's edge. Security cameras recorded everything, their red lights blinking silently overhead. Clayton knew his supervisor would review the footage, just as he knew this moment would follow him long after his shift ended. Eleanor's need grew more urgent, the crowd more restless, and his position increasingly untenable. Then movement at the edge of the crowd caught everyone's attention. The sea of onlookers parted, revealing an unexpected figure whose presence would transform the standoff from a local incident into something much more significant. As Keanu Reeves stepped forward, the atmosphere shifted, and with it, the trajectory of everyone involved in this pivotal moment at Sunset Plaza Mall. Keanu Reeves moved through the crowd with quiet purpose, his presence bringing an immediate hush to the corridor. His casual attire, dark jeans and a well-worn leather jacket, stood in stark contrast to the gravity of the situation. He paused several feet from Clayton and Eleanor, taking in the scene with thoughtful consideration. The actor's approach carried none of the dramatic flair of his on-screen personas. Instead, he projected a sense of genuine concern that resonated with everyone present. His first words, spoken in that familiar gentle tone, cut through the tension. He addressed Clayton directly, not as a celebrity wielding influence, but as one human being to another. Clayton found himself caught off guard by Keanu's disarming sincerity. The security guard's rigid posture softened slightly as the actor shared a personal story about his own mother's struggles with aging and dignity. The words weren't delivered as a rebuke but as a bridge of understanding, connecting Clayton's sense of duty with the larger context of human compassion. Eleanor watched this exchange with a mix of hope and increasing discomfort. Her medical urgency hadn't diminished, but she maintained her composure, her years of teaching experience evident in her patient dignity. Keanu acknowledged her presence with a respectful nod, ensuring she wasn't reduced to merely the subject of their discussion. The crowd's energy shifted as Keanu guided the conversation beyond the immediate conflict. He spoke about his experiences with rigid systems, times when rules and humanity seemed at odds. His words carried the weight of someone who understood both sides, the need for order and the importance of compassion. Several onlookers nodded in recognition, their own similar experiences reflected in his words. Clayton found his professional armor cracking as Keanu asked simple but profound questions. Why were the bathroom policies created? What were they truly protecting? The actor's inquiries weren't accusatory but exploratory, inviting everyone present to consider the larger picture. Security cameras continued their silent vigil overhead as Clayton struggled with his response. The intervention took an unexpected turn when Keanu shared how his own fame had sometimes created similar situations, moments when protocol and humanity clashed. He spoke about times when breaking character helped resolve seemingly impossible situations. His vulnerability in sharing these stories transformed the atmosphere from confrontational to collaborative. Penny, the nurse who had spoken up earlier, found an opening to add medical context to Keanu's humanitarian appeal. The actor stepped back, giving her space to explain the physical realities of Eleanor's situation. His presence lent weight to her professional assessment, creating a powerful combination of celebrity influence and medical expertise. The mall's background music seemed to fade as Keanu brought the focus back to the core issue: human dignity. He spoke about how true security meant ensuring everyone's well-being, not just following rules blindly. His words resonated with Clayton's military background, speaking to the higher purpose of protection and service. Eleanor's quiet strength throughout the discussion moved many to tears. Keanu acknowledged her patience and grace, pointing out how her dignity in the face of this challenge highlighted the policy's flaws. The actor's respect for her situation was evident in every word and gesture, transforming her from a policy problem into a person deserving of immediate care and consideration. As the minutes passed, Clayton found himself remembering why he had chosen security work in the first place: to help people, to protect them, to make a difference. Keanu's presence hadn't forced a resolution but had created space for humanity to prevail over protocol. The security guard's hand moved from his badge to his heart, a subtle but significant shift in his stance. Clayton Thompson's transformation happened gradually, then suddenly. His fingers uncurled from his badge, his shoulders relaxed, and his expression softened as he processed everything he'd heard. The security guard looked at Eleanor Williams again, this time seeing not a policy violation but someone who could be his own mother. Without fanfare, he stepped aside from the bathroom entrance, nodding gently to Eleanor. The simple gesture carried enormous weight. Eleanor moved forward with as much dignity as her situation allowed, supported by Penny, who had remained steadfast throughout the confrontation. The crowd's reaction was subtle but powerful: soft sighs of relief, quiet murmurs of approval, and a few dabbed eyes among those most touched by the scene's resolution. Mall management arrived moments later, drawn by reports of the gathering crowd. The supervisor's stern expression faltered upon recognizing Keanu Reeves among the onlookers. The actor stepped forward again, this time addressing the mall officials with the same thoughtful consideration he'd shown earlier. His words weren't demanding but inviting, suggesting a conversation about how policies could protect both property and human dignity. Clayton found his voice, speaking up to his supervisors about the daily challenges he witnessed. His words carried the weight of 15 years of experience, enhanced by this morning's events. He described elderly visitors struggling with the receipt policy, medical emergencies that didn't align with corporate rules, and the toll that rigid enforcement took on both security staff and the community. The mall's marketing manager, sensing both crisis and opportunity, quickly joined the discussion. She recognized how this moment could transform the mall's image, either as an establishment that valued profits over people or as one that listened and adapted to community needs. Keanu's presence added unprecedented attention to what might have otherwise been a local incident. Eleanor returned from the restroom to find her situation had sparked something larger than herself. The mall officials, now acutely aware of the cameras and social media attention, announced an immediate review of the bathroom policy. They spoke about temporary medical exemptions, consideration for elderly visitors, and the possibility of installing a family restroom with more accessible policies. The crowd began to disperse, but not before witnessing something remarkable. Clayton approached Eleanor with genuine remorse, extending an apology that came from his heart rather than corporate protocol. Eleanor's response showcased the grace that had marked her 40 years of teaching. She accepted his words with understanding, acknowledging the difficult position he had faced. Keanu remained present throughout these exchanges, not as a celebrity but as a concerned citizen. His influence had opened the door, but it was the human connections forming now that would ensure lasting change. He spoke briefly with mall management about the importance of community relations, suggesting ways to balance security needs with human compassion. The mall's atmosphere shifted noticeably. Store managers emerged with offers of chairs for elderly visitors, a cafe owner brought water to those who had been standing throughout the confrontation, and security staff began sharing stories of similar situations they'd faced. What had started as a tense standoff transformed into an impromptu community forum on aging, dignity, and corporate responsibility. As the situation fully resolved, it became clear that this morning would leave a lasting mark on Sunset Plaza Mall. The marketing team was already drafting announcements about policy reviews and community engagement initiatives. Security staff huddled together, discussing ways to handle similar situations with greater flexibility. Mall visitors shared contact information, forming impromptu advocacy groups for elderly rights and accessibility. News of the Sunset Plaza Mall incident spread rapidly through social media channels, transformed by Keanu Reeves's unexpected involvement from a local dispute into a national conversation about dignity in aging. Mobile phone footage captured the actor's thoughtful intervention, but more importantly, it showcased Eleanor Williams's quiet strength and Clayton Thompson's powerful change of heart. Local news stations arrived at the mall by afternoon, their cameras capturing the newly posted signs announcing immediate changes to bathroom access policies. The mall's management team, recognizing the opportunity for positive change, had worked quickly to implement temporary measures while promising more comprehensive reforms. Security staff received updated guidelines emphasizing compassion alongside their duty to protect. Eleanor found herself reluctantly thrust into the spotlight as senior advocacy groups reached out for interviews. Her story resonated particularly with families struggling to help aging parents maintain their independence and dignity. She handled the attention with characteristic grace, redirecting conversations toward broader issues of accessibility and respect for older citizens in public spaces. Clayton Thompson's transformation became a talking point among security professionals nationwide. His willingness to choose humanity over rigid policy enforcement sparked discussions about training protocols and the importance of discretion in security work. Several mall security firms began reviewing their policies, recognizing that the incident could have happened anywhere. The mall's rapid response impressed many observers. Within days, they installed emergency call buttons in restroom areas, created a dedicated family restroom with medical priority access, and established a customer service desk specifically for addressing accessibility needs. These changes, while prompted by crisis, demonstrated a genuine commitment to community welfare. Social media played a significant role in spreading awareness. The hashtag #DignityForAll gained traction, with people sharing similar experiences from across the country. Keanu Reeves's involvement certainly amplified the message, but it was the universal themes of aging, dignity, and compassion that truly resonated with audiences. 1 month after the incident, Sunset Plaza Mall hosted a community forum on accessibility and aging. Eleanor and Clayton both attended, sharing their perspectives on that pivotal morning. Their unlikely friendship, forged in the aftermath of confrontation, offered a powerful example of understanding and growth. Eleanor spoke about forgiveness and the importance of seeing beyond rules to human needs. Clayton discussed how the experience had transformed his approach to security work. The mall's transformation extended beyond policy changes. Store managers began training staff on sensitivity toward elderly customers. Security personnel received additional training in handling medical emergencies and recognizing situations requiring compassionate intervention. The mall's sterile atmosphere softened as benches returned, rest areas appeared, and community bulletin boards sprouted up near major entrances. Local businesses took notice. Other shopping centers and public spaces began reviewing their own accessibility policies. The incident sparked a regional movement toward more age-friendly commercial spaces. Senior advocacy groups reported increased cooperation from business owners in addressing accessibility concerns. The story's impact reached beyond retail spaces. Local government officials initiated reviews of public building accessibility. Schools incorporated discussions about aging and dignity into their social studies programs. The incident became a case study in business ethics courses, examining the balance between security protocols and human compassion. 6 months after the incident at Sunset Plaza Mall, the ripples of change continued to spread through the community. Eleanor Williams and Clayton Thompson had become unexpected ambassadors for social change, their story inspiring a movement that extended far beyond bathroom access policies. Their monthly coffee meetings at the mall's renovated community space became informal gatherings where elderly residents shared concerns with security staff, building bridges between groups once separated by rigid protocols. The mall's transformation served as a model for other businesses nationwide. Their new Dignity First program, developed with input from senior advocacy groups and security experts, balanced safety requirements with human needs. Security cameras still watched over corridors, but now they were complemented by help buttons and clearly posted contact information for medical assistance. The mall's security team underwent monthly compassion training, with Clayton often sharing his experience as a teaching moment. Eleanor returned to teaching, but not in a traditional classroom. She became a regular speaker at security training programs, sharing her perspective on aging with dignity. Her gentle wisdom touched hearts and opened minds, helping young security officers understand the challenges faced by elderly visitors. The kindergarten teacher who once shaped young minds now shaped corporate policies, proving that age brought not just challenges but valuable wisdom. Keanu Reeves's brief involvement catalyzed change, but the community owned its evolution. Local businesses formed an accessibility council, meeting regularly to discuss ways to make public spaces more welcoming for all ages. The mall's customer service desk, once a place for complaints, transformed into an information center for elderly resources, medical assistance, and community programs. Clayton found his career taking an unexpected turn. His experience led to a promotion, but not in traditional security advancement. The mall created a new position, Community Relations Coordinator, combining his security expertise with his newfound passion for compassionate enforcement. He developed protocols that other malls began to adopt, proving that security and humanity could coexist. The incident's anniversary approached with plans for celebration rather than remembrance of conflict. The mall announced the opening of a new family care center, offering rest areas, medical assistance, and private facilities for those needing extra time or care. Eleanor and Clayton would cut the ribbon together, their friendship symbolizing the power of understanding and growth. Local schools incorporated the story into their curriculum, teaching students about empathy, dignity, and the importance of standing up for others. The next generation learned that rules, while important, should never overshadow basic human compassion. Young voices began joining elderly advocacy groups, creating intergenerational dialogues about respect and understanding. A year passed since that pivotal morning at Sunset Plaza Mall, and the space had transformed beyond mere policy changes. The cold fluorescent lights still buzzed overhead, but they illuminated a warmer, more compassionate environment. On this particular morning, Eleanor Williams stood in the mall's central courtyard, surrounded by children from her old kindergarten class, now teaching them a different kind of lesson about kindness and dignity. Clayton Thompson watched from his new office, his security badge now accompanied by a Community Relations Coordinator nameplate. The mall's corridors echoed with conversations instead of confrontations, as elderly visitors moved confidently through spaces designed with their needs in mind. The security cameras still recorded everything, but they now captured moments of assistance, understanding, and community connection. The incident that brought Keanu Reeves to their mall had faded from headlines, but its impact remained vibrant in the daily interactions between security staff and visitors, in the smiles of elderly shoppers confident in their dignity, and in the countless other malls and public spaces that had learned from their example. What began as a standoff over bathroom access had blossomed into a movement, proving that sometimes the most powerful changes start with a simple question: why not?